Now that we have the penguin modeled and textured, let's make him move. This will give us the opportunity to not only look at some of the animation tools in formz, but also look at some additional modeling tools and how we can use these modeling tools as animation tools also. Now that we have everything modeled and textured, let's go ahead and animate the penguin. Let's start off with his foot. Here's one way to animate objects in formz. It's called Keyframe animation. Click on the Keyframe tool, click on the object, and what we need to do is tell that object where we want it to be at certain points in time. Move the timeline, move the object. And as I scrub that timeline back and forth, you'll see that the object automatically interpolates between those two keyframe positions. Let's move the timeline down a little further. At that point in time, I want the object to be right there. And let's move down to the 1 second mark. At that point, I'm going to drag it back to the very beginning. I'll play that back, and you can see it just interpolates through those few keyframe positions that I give it. Now I can stop anywhere along the way and transform the object by moving, rotating, or scaling it, and formz will automatically keep track of the position for us. So you can see I rotated the foot, so when it goes up at that point in time, it'll rotate up. Now if I play this back in real time, notice that it goes through the 1 cycle, because that's all that I keyframed at this point. Now I'm not going to keyframe every single step that he takes, so what I'll do is I'll go into the animation editor palette. And here you can see that I can see a graphical representation of all the keyframe information that I just recorded. And I can go through each of those tracks and say, well, go ahead and repeat each of those tracks over and over again. And I can also modify the keyframe value here too. For example, the maximum height value, I can actually modify the keyframe value by dragging it and maybe modifying the velocity curve, so I can increase or decrease how fast it goes into or out of that keyframe position. And all that can be modified right here within the animation editor palette. Now that we have the foot animated, let's go ahead and animate the rest of the body. Now with that, we'll look at the deformation tool. Now at this point, we'll just look at the modeling capabilities of the deformation tool, and then we'll see how we can also animate the deformation parameters. We can do a radial bend, grab any object and pretty much bend it in any direction that we need. So we can bend them forward, maybe backwards. We can also resize the deformation box, which resizes the area that's affected by that particular deformation tool. So maybe bend just the top portion of the penguin to bend just his head. Long list of options here. How about a twist? So maybe I'll twist just the bottom half of his body here, so it looks like he's walking back and forth. Now these are controlled parameters, so I can go back at any time, and if I query the parameters of the object, you can see that all the deformation information is here stored with the object. So I can modify the radial bend angle, I can modify the twisting angle, I can even add additional deformations here if I want also. For example, I can add, let's say, a bulge. So I can maybe play with the values here and sort of bulge them out in any direction I need. So it looks like we have a very well-fed penguin here. I can also disable any of the deformations I have assigned to that. Now at this point, this is using the deformation tool as a modeling tool. Now we can also animate these parameters. So we do an animated twist and assign it to the object, and you can see it lists all those different parameters here for us, and we can change those values over time. So let's go to the lower angle. So there's just one keyframe value for that at this point in time, and I move it to be any angle that I want over time. I can graphically create that value over time by giving it the keyframe values, maybe plus 30 degrees, minus 30 degrees, then back plus again, and just have that repeat. I played back, and that's all it does now, is go back and twist plus and minus 30 degrees. Let's modify the overall limits. For example, take that upper limit and drag that down so only half the object twist. Maybe drag it further down so only the bottom 10% of the object twist. And of course, you can keyframe that value over time also. So if I turn the other layer on here, which has some other additional animation deformations assigned to the object, we get the animated penguin that looks like this, and there's the foot that we did earlier, and he's spending a lot of time walking, but he's not getting anywhere because he's still static in the same position. So what we can do is take all those objects and put those into an animation group, and then we animate just the group. We can keyframe animate the group, or we can also look at another new tool here, animate along path. So we can take the animation group, click on the path. Now the animation group follows the path, and of course everything inside the animation group follows along with it. And that's how we get the penguin animated following along that path.